Launched in 1987, Star Trek: The Next Generation boldly took viewers to new frontiers of science fiction, introducing Captain Picard, Commander Riker Data, and an unforgettable crew who became icons of TV history. Running until 1994, the series inspired generations and cemented its place as a cultural phenomenon. But nearly 4 decades later, fans still ask what became of the cast who brought the USS Enterprise to life. In 2025, some stars continue to shine on screen, others have shifted careers, and a few have faced surprising turns. Join us as we explore where the TNG cast is now, then versus today. Majel Barrett, born February 23, 1932, in Cleveland, Ohio, was 55 when she returned to Star Trek: The Next Generation in 1987 as both the ship's omnipresent computer voice and the unforgettable Lwaxana Troi, whose flamboyance, unfiltered desires, and brazen pursuit of Picard alternately entertained and embarrassed fans. But behind the comedy, Barrett's life was defined by scandal and survival. Her childhood was marked by financial struggle, raised in a family that saw her ambitions as laughable. She fought ridicule for being outspoken and unapologetic. Hollywood nearly crushed her early after playing number 1 in the Star Trek pilot. NBC executives dismissed her as too aggressive, and she was quietly blacklisted, left with a reputation as trouble. Yet she forced her way back, beginning a torrid affair with creator Gene Roddenberry while he was still married, a relationship that sent shockwaves through the small industry community. Critics accused her of leveraging that connection to guarantee roles with crew members, openly calling her the price of working with Gene. She endured decades of whispers that she was more beneficiary than talent, and her greatest humiliation was the constant assertion that she was foisted onto Star Trek out of nepotism. Their marriage, formalized in 1969, was tempestuous. Gene's infidelities were notorious, and insiders described Barrett as fiercely jealous, her temper legendary. Still, she remained at his side, carefully consolidating control over his legacy after his death, battling rivals in court and in boardrooms. Colleagues both admired and feared her ruthless business tactics, with some accusing her of cutting deals that favored her family at the expense of others. Personally, she bore the pain of being dismissed as a joke by many fans, even as she secretly craved their respect. Diagnosed with leukemia in her final years, she fought privately, masking weakness until the end. She died on December 18, 2008 in Bel Air. At 76, her estate valued at approximately $60 million, much of it from royalties, production rights, and property holdings. Even posthumously, her voice lingered in Star Trek media, a symbol of ambition, controversy, and survival through scandal. Patrick Stewart was born on July 13, 1940, and in 1987, at age 47, he became Captain Jean-Luc Picard, a role that cloaked him in gravitas and philosophical weight, turning him into the face of 24th century Starfleet. Picard's stoicism and intellect made him beloved, but the authority he embodied on screen was born from shadows in his past. Stewart's childhood in Yorkshire was steeped in poverty and violence. His father, a soldier damaged by war, terrorized the household, and Patrick grew up hiding bruises and secrets behind silence. On stage, his career met early humiliations, mocked for his baldness, deemed too intense for television, and he struggled through years of rejection until Star Trek transformed his fate. But the success masked a darker cost. Colleagues often spoke of his explosive temper during rehearsals, and his obsession with perfection made him notoriously difficult to work with. His greatest career failure was the critical disaster of the Emoji Movie, where his decision to voice the poop emoji shocked fans who saw it as a betrayal of his Shakespearean dignity. His personal life bore scars too. 2 failed marriages plagued by jealousy and emotional distance, estranged moments with his children, and tabloid whispers of affairs with younger women. Tragedy followed him into old age as friends succumbed to illness and dementia, forcing him to watch his generation vanish. As of 2025, at 85, Stewart remains active, remarried to Sunny Ozel, and fiercely protective of his reputation. His estate includes homes in Los Angeles and London, art collections and royalties that helped build a fortune of around $75 million. He remains the symbol of intellect and strength. But behind the calm captaincy lies a man still haunted by ghosts of violence, failed love, and the lingering suspicion that the world never truly forgave him for laughing all the way to the bank as an animated piece of poop. Patty Yasutake, born September 6, 1953, in Gardena, California, was 37 when she first appeared as Nurse Alyssa Ogawa in 1990. A quiet yet indispensable presence who symbolized calm amid chaos. Fans embraced her warmth, but beneath her composed demeanor lay the long shadows of a childhood riddled with cultural alienation, where her Japanese-American heritage made her the target of cruel ridicule from peers and teachers alike. She grew up learning to hide her hurt behind a polite smile, a survival mechanism that carried into Hollywood. While she was admired for her professionalism behind the scenes, she endured endless typecasting, overlooked for leading roles because executives deemed her too ethnic or not marketable. Her biggest career heartbreak came in the late 1990s, when a film she had been promised as a starring vehicle collapsed before production, leaving her embittered and convinced she had been sabotaged. Though she avoided public scandal whispers among colleagues, noted her distrust of the industry, a tendency to cut off friends she suspected of betrayal, and an unspoken anger about being relegated to minor roles while less talented peers ascended. Her personal life was marked by a marriage that deteriorated into a cold estrangement, and though she had children, insiders spoke of her fear that they saw her more as absent than nurturing, as work consumed her. Tragedy struck in her later years when she was diagnosed with a rare form of T-cell lymphoma, a disease she battled quietly but fiercely. Patty Yasutake died on August 5, 2024, at age 70, her life ending in Los Angeles after months of declining health. At the time of her death, her net worth was estimated at $5 million, the accumulation of decades of steady, though rarely glamorous work. Her passing left fans grieving a woman they saw as grace embodied. But those who knew her privately spoke of a life heavy with frustration, unspoken bitterness, and battles fought behind the mask of serenity. Jonathan Frakes was born on August 19, 1952, and in 1987, at age 35, he stepped into the uniform of Commander William Riker, the second in command, who became known for his charm swagger and the infamous Riker lean. Riker was both a ladies' man and a tactical strategist, a character who embodied charisma without ever eclipsing his captain. But Jonathan's own journey had been less heroic. His upbringing in Pennsylvania was defined by constant moves, bullying over his lanky frame, and a quiet shame at his working-class roots. His early acting years were humiliating commercials, failed auditions, and nights wondering if he would ever break free from the anonymity of guest spots. Though he reinvented himself on TNG, he was known for moments of arrogance, and on set he clashed with directors who felt he tried to dominate scenes. His most notorious professional disaster came with the 2004 film Thunderbirds, a box office catastrophe that nearly obliterated his directing career, branding him as reckless with big budgets. Rumors circulated of his frustration turning into heavy drinking during the years that followed, though he eventually pulled himself back to steady television work. His marriage to actress Jeannie Francis has not been without turbulence. Separations, whispered infidelities, and tension caused by career imbalances, but they managed to survive Hollywood's notorious curse of short-lived unions. He faced the devastating loss of his brother Daniel, a tragedy that left him shaken and distant for years, something fans only later learned about. Now 73. Frakes lives in Calabasas, working steadily in voice and directing projects, though he privately admits the failure of Thunderbirds still burns. His estate includes his California home royalties from Star Trek directing fees and convention appearances, giving him a net worth around $16 million. To the public, he is the smiling, approachable #1. But to those who know the man beneath the beard, he is a survivor of humiliation, family loss, and a career that nearly crumbled in the glare of Hollywood's unforgiving spotlight. Marina Sirtis was born on March 29, 1955, and took on the role of Counselor Deanna Troi in 1987 at the age of 32, embodying the empath who became the emotional conscience of the Enterprise and one of Captain Picard's closest allies. Troi was written as nurturing and intuitive, though often criticized for being underutilized, yet audiences cherished her for the warmth and vulnerability she brought to an otherwise rigid Starfleet hierarchy. Behind the scenes, Sirtis's life had been scarred by a turbulent childhood in London, raised by strict Greek parents, in a working-class household where she was bullied for her appearance and accent, and where she concealed her pain through overeating, until an eating disorder nearly consumed her. Breaking into acting, she endured humiliating rejections, was told she was too ethnic for leading roles, and at one point was nearly written out of TNG after the first season, surviving only because fans demanded her return. Her career was also punctuated by controversies. Rumors swirled of heated arguments with producers over her costume's overt sexuality, and later she ignited outrage in 2021 when she mocked Texans during a deadly winter storm, unleashing a political firestorm that forced her to deactivate her accounts and retreat back to the UK. In her personal life, her long marriage to guitarist Michael Lamper was troubled by whispers of separations, and her admitted struggles with intimacy made worse after his unexpected death in 2019, which devastated her. She has openly admitted to cycles of depression and alcoholism in her 40s, and her caustic humor often alienated colleagues, even as fans adored her frankness. Now 70 and still alive, she lives in London, dividing her time between convention appearances and small TV roles, owning a modest home, and investing in property. Her net worth is estimated between $4 to $6 million, but her legacy is marked not just by the character she played, but by the controversies and personal storms she never fully outran. LeVar Burton was born on February 16, 1957, and in 1987, at age 30, he joined the crew of the Enterprise as Lieutenant Commander Geordi LaForge, the blind engineer who, through brilliance and empathy, became one of the series' most inspiring characters. Geordi represented resilience and underdog genius, whose visor symbolized both vulnerability and strength, and audiences embraced him as the heart of the ship's intellect. Burton's childhood was marked by instability. Born in Germany to a military family, he endured constant uprooting and the loneliness of being the outsider, often taunted for his skin color and bookish nature. His career skyrocketed early with Roots, but the weight of that fame crushed him. He was typecast, pigeonholed, and forced to confront Hollywood's racial prejudices head-on. Though Reading Rainbow made him a beloved figure behind the smile, he battled frustrations at being overlooked for serious film roles, his name quietly blacklisted from projects where producers felt a black man could not lead. The cruelest blow to his career came in 2021 when, despite fan campaigns, he was rejected as permanent host of Jeopardy a decision that left him humiliated and resentful, his lifelong image as America's educator undermined by executives who doubted his appeal. Off-screen, his personal life was complicated by whispers of marital tension, financial missteps, and strained relationships with colleagues who accused him of being quietly manipulative, hiding ambition behind a gentle exterior. He has also battled periods of depression, especially during years when work dried up and convention appearances were his main income. Still alive in 2025 at 68, he continues to act and advocate for literacy, though the sting of missed opportunities remains. His fortune, around $6 million, is modest compared to his peers built from residuals children's programming and Star Trek royalties. To the public, he is eternally the champion of knowledge and empathy. But the untold story is of a man who has carried rejection, racial barriers, and personal disappointments behind the very smile that taught generations to read. Brent Spiner, born February 2, 1949, in Houston, Texas, became the android Lieutenant Commander Data in 1987 at the age of 38, a role that would define his career and transform him into a cult icon. Data, the synthetic being endlessly searching for humanity, became the soul of TNG, adored for his innocence and dry humor. But Spiner himself came from a past far darker. Raised in a fractured home after his father died when he was a baby. His stepfather was distant and harsh, leaving young Brent isolated and frequently mocked by peers for his awkward demeanor and love of theater. His career struggled for years, bit parts in sitcoms and stage work that paid little until Star Trek saved him. Though it also trapped him. Spiner grew notorious on set for mood swings, sometimes charming and hilarious, other times cold and cutting, especially when directors pushed him to repeat Data's childlike quirks. His biggest professional humiliation came with his 1991 music album, Old Yellow Eyes Is Back, mocked by critics and considered a vanity project that nearly derailed his credibility, after which he sank into a period of bitterness. Rumors followed of clashes with Patrick Stewart and secret affairs with co-stars, though he always laughed them off in interviews. Personally, Spiner never married in his youth, often joking about his fear of commitment, but whispers in Hollywood painted him as a serial dater of much younger women, one of whom later accused him of manipulative behavior, though no lawsuit emerged. By the late 2000s, he had retreated from leading work, plagued by health anxieties and paranoia about aging out of the industry. Now 76, he still appears at conventions but lives reclusively in Los Angeles with an estimated net worth of $7 million tied up in residuals, property, and collectibles. While he remains beloved for Data, Brent Spiner's reality is one of contradictions, a man who portrayed the quest for humanity while often struggling with his own flaws and insecurities. Michael Dorn, born December 9, 1952 in Luling, Texas, entered Star Trek: The Next Generation in 1987 at the age of 34, portraying Lieutenant Worf, the stoic Klingon torn between his warrior culture and Starfleet duty. Fans embraced Worf's stern discipline and tragic honor. But Dorn himself grew up far from heroic. His childhood was marked by instability, moving constantly, and enduring prejudice in a racially divided America. Introverted and secretive, he carried deep insecurities into adulthood, masking them with a tough exterior. Breaking into acting, he endured countless rejections, working for years as a struggling musician and bit actor before TNG finally gave him recognition. Yet success brought its own shadows. Dorn was infamous for his intense privacy, refusing to socialize with castmates, and persistent rumors claimed he manipulated negotiations to secure appearances across multiple Star Trek series, becoming the most recurring actor in the franchise. His greatest career setback came in the late 90s, when his push for a Worf-centered spin-off was rejected repeatedly by Paramount, leaving him bitter and sidelined. Behind the curtain, whispers of a secret marriage and alleged affairs with co-stars like Marina Sirtis and Terry Farrell followed him, though he never addressed them publicly. Personally, Dorn faced a near-death scare with prostate cancer, which pushed him into veganism and aviation as coping mechanisms, but also deepened his paranoia about mortality. He has long been described as difficult in negotiations with colleagues, recalling his obsession with financial details, leading some to call him calculating. Now 72, he lives quietly in California, flying his private planes and attending conventions, his estimated net worth at $8 million. His assets include aircraft property and investments, but his true fortune lies in the cult devotion of fans. Still beneath the armor of Worf, Dorn remains a man haunted by missed opportunities and whispered scandals, a figure as enigmatic as the Klingon he portrayed. Wil Wheaton, born July 29, 1972 in Burbank, California, became Wesley Crusher in 1987 at just 15, a role that should have made him Hollywood's golden boy, but instead left him a lightning rod for ridicule. His character, a teenage prodigy, divided audiences, admired by some, despised by many, and used as a scapegoat for weak writing. Off-screen, Wheaton's own life mirrored his character's isolation. Raised by parents who, by his own account, treated him less as a child and more as a paycheck, he endured years of emotional neglect, pushed relentlessly into auditions and appearances he despised. Behind the cheerful teenage facade, he hid depression, anxiety, and rage. On set, he grew increasingly resentful of the scripts, which infantilized him, and he clashed with writers and producers, storming out after heated disputes. His eventual departure from TNG, painted publicly as a career move, was, in reality, an escape from both the character and the suffocating environment, yet it left his career in ruins. Branded difficult, he lost roles, and when a major film project collapsed in the 1990s, he spiraled into alcohol abuse and self-sabotage. His personal life was marked by estrangement. He cut ties with his parents, whom he accused of exploitation, and he struggled with trust in relationships. Though he later found stability in marriage, he admitted to years of suicidal ideation and mental breakdowns, becoming one of the few Star Trek alumni to openly expose his darkest struggles. His comeback came not through acting, but through writing, blogging, voice acting, and embracing geek culture, transforming himself into a spokesman for trauma survival. Still, insiders recall bitter disputes with former colleagues and his hypersensitivity to criticism, which sometimes alienated even supporters. Now 53, he lives in California, openly advocating for mental health while continuing to appear at conventions and stream online content. His net worth is a modest $1 million, far below his former co-stars, yet his influence is felt in the courage to expose the exploitation of child actors and the hidden cost of early fame in Hollywood. Gates McFadden, born March 2, 1949 in Ohio, first appeared as Dr. Beverly Crusher in 1987, at 38, embodying intelligence, quiet authority, and maternal warmth that gave Star Trek: The Next Generation a crucial human dimension, particularly in her relationship with Wesley Crusher and her restrained chemistry with Captain Picard. Audiences connected with her steadiness, but McFadden's real story was more volatile. Raised in a strict, emotionally barren household, she spent much of her childhood mocked for her bookishness and awkwardness, hiding her feelings through theater and dance. By the time she reached Hollywood, she carried both ambition and fragility, and while her performance skills were undeniable, her career was marred by sabotage. After the first season of TNG, she was suddenly fired, officially blamed on creative direction, but insiders revealed her fiery clashes with showrunner Maurice Hurley over sexist writing and the underdevelopment of her character, especially as a mother. Humiliated and unemployed, she privately sank into depression, admitting years later that she felt betrayed by an industry that rewarded compliance over conviction. Her triumphant return in Season 3, largely due to Patrick Stewart's backing and fan outrage, saved her career, yet she gained a reputation for aloofness and perfectionism. Crew members whispered about her sharp tongue, her tendency to belittle assistants, and her icy distance at rap parties. Her personal life was equally rocky. A long affair with a married producer ended in scandal, and she retreated into single motherhood, raising her son away from the spotlight. Behind her calm screen presence were bouts of anxiety and periods of crushing loneliness intensified by the loss of close colleagues to illness. Despite avoiding the extremes of drugs or gambling, she struggled quietly with self-doubt. Now 76, she continues to act, teach, and make convention appearances, her net worth estimated around $3 million derived from royalties, teaching, and investments. Her wealth is modest compared to others, but her legacy lies in resilience and the scars of battles fought behind the camera. Colm Meaney, born May 30, 1953 in Dublin, Ireland, played Chief Miles O'Brien in 1987 at the age of 34, embodying the quiet resilience of a working-class everyman in a universe filled with heroes. Fans loved him for being the heart of the ship, the technician who suffered silently through endless crises, the character whose humanity gave Star Trek its soul. Yet Meaney's own early years were marked by hardship. Raised in a modest Irish family with little money, he endured ridicule for his accent and was often treated as an outsider when he pursued acting in London, where classmates mocked his rough edges. His career was a long struggle through failed auditions and dismissive directors who branded him too ethnic for leading roles. His most infamous clash came on Deep Space Nine when he refused to film a script featuring a leprechaun, branding it racist and humiliating to his Irish heritage. Though praised later, the decision sparked behind-the-scenes hostility and nearly got him replaced. Meaney has also been a lightning rod for his fiery political opinions, his open support for Sinn Féin, and criticisms of British policy in Northern Ireland alienated some Hollywood producers and fueled rumors of blacklisting during the 1990s. Personally, he survived a failed marriage to actress Barbara Dowling, scarred by bitter custody battles before remarrying Ines Glorian. Friends describe him as brilliant but stubborn, prone to long grudges and infamous rants about the hypocrisy of Hollywood. Professionally, he endured being typecast, often overlooked for leading roles despite his talent, with his biggest box office failures films like Far and Away damaging his credibility. Tragedy struck when several close friends from Dublin's theatre scene died young, a reminder of the fragility of his roots. Now at 72, Meaney continues to work steadily in film and television while living quietly between Spain and the US, with an estimated net worth of $10 million tied largely to real estate residuals and careful investments. Though respected, he remains an actor, defined not just by his iconic role, but by his unflinching refusal to bend to Hollywood stereotypes. Denise Crosby, born November 24, 1957, in Hollywood, California, was 30 when she stepped onto the bridge of the Enterprise in 1987 as Lieutenant Tasha Yar, the hardened security chief with a tragic past whose fierce loyalty captured fans' imaginations. Yet behind her tough character was an actress battling her own demons. Crosby was the granddaughter of legendary crooner Bing Crosby, but her relationship with her family was toxic. Her father Dennis was absent, and her famous lineage did little to shield her from the dysfunction and scorn of Hollywood insiders who saw her as a Nepo baby unworthy of serious roles. Her teenage years were filled with rebellion, including posing for Playboy in 1979, a decision that haunted her when Star Trek executives recoiled as the images resurfaced with rumors circulating that it cost her the job. In truth, she left the show after bitter arguments about her lack of development. But the split was acrimonious, and whispers spread that she was difficult, branding her with a stigma that followed her through her career. Crosby faced rejection after rejection, often typecast in low-budget horror films, and her biggest career failure was the implosion of her post-Trek projects, most notably a cancelled NBC pilot that was touted as her big break. Personally, her life has been no less turbulent. Short-lived relationships, a stormy romance with producer Ken Silk, and years of feeling overshadowed by her family name left her struggling with identity and self-worth. She carried scars from her father's alcoholism and her family's history of scandal, including accusations of abuse surrounding Bing Crosby that made the Crosby name as much a curse as a blessing. Although she found redemption in returning to Star Trek as the Romulan Sela, she never achieved the superstardom she craved. Now, at 67, she continues working in smaller projects and fan conventions, maintaining a net worth of around $6 million, built mostly from residuals and appearances. Though she remains beloved by Trek fans, her career is remembered as one of promise, undone by controversy, defiance, and a legacy she could never quite escape. Diana Muldaur, born August 19, 1938 in Brooklyn, New York, was 50 when she joined Star Trek: The Next Generation in 1988 as Dr. Catherine Pulaski, stepping into the role at an age when Hollywood had already turned its back on most actresses. Pulaski was caustic, brilliant, and unapologetically skeptical of Data, a choice that divided the audience. Some praised her as a sharp homage to McCoy, while others resented her coldness. Yet, behind the character's thorny exterior was a woman who had long fought her own battles with dismissal and mockery. Muldaur's childhood was shaped by a distant father who valued appearances over affection, and a mother whose depression left emotional scars that pushed young Diana to become self-sufficient early. In Hollywood, she was admired for her elegance, but insiders whispered that she was exacting, prone to clashes with producers who underestimated her, and deeply bitter over being excluded from certain circles because of her refusal to play the pliant ingenue. Her biggest professional humiliation came with her sudden departure from TNG. After just one season, a decision the studio framed as creative direction, but which insiders hinted was fueled by behind-the-scenes resentment that she did not blend socially with the tight-knit cast. Personally, Muldaur endured a marriage that unraveled in disappointment, leaving her with years of loneliness and whispered rumors of affairs with married colleagues that she never confirmed. She lost several close friends to cancer in the 1990s, events that left her withdrawn and distrustful. Now 87, Muldaur lives privately, guarded against the industry that once both celebrated and discarded her. With a net worth of $203 million accumulated from decades of selective but enduring work, she remains a figure admired for resilience. But her story is equally one of isolation, creative clashes, and a refusal to compromise, leaving her both respected and quietly feared in Hollywood circles. Whoopi Goldberg, born November 13, 1955 in New York City, entered Star Trek: The Next Generation in 1988 at the age of 33, bringing to life the enigmatic Guinan, a serene and wise bartender whose cryptic guidance often served as Captain Picard's moral compass. Audiences embraced her as a spiritual presence within the show, but Goldberg's real life has been anything but serene. Born Karen Elaine Johnson, she endured a childhood in poverty, raised by a single mother, while being mocked for her appearance, her dyslexia, and her eccentric behavior. She hid her pain with humor, but years of bullying left her fiercely protective of her independence. Before her fame, she battled drug addiction in the 1970s and nearly vanished into obscurity after failed attempts at stand-up and theater. Her career breakthrough brought acclaim, but her personal scandals nearly eclipsed her talent. The most infamous came in 1993 when she defended then-boyfriend Ted Danson's blackface stunt at her Friars Club roast, claiming she wrote the material. The backlash was immense, branding her reckless and insensitive. Later controversies piled on her unapologetic comments on Roman Polanski, her fiery disputes on The View, and her 2022 suspension for remarks about the Holocaust that drew global condemnation. Her relationships have been equally turbulent: 3 failed marriages, a volatile affair with Danson that destroyed his marriage, and strained ties with her daughter Alex, who has spoken openly about the challenges of being Goldberg's child. She has battled serious health issues, including pneumonia and sepsis, that nearly killed her in 2019, leaving her frail for months. Still, she remains one of the rare EGOT winners, a towering figure in entertainment, who refuses to conform. At 69 in 2025, Goldberg continues to appear on television and in films while managing her cannabis brand and other business ventures with an estimated net worth of $60 million. Thank you for joining us on this nostalgic journey through classic television history. If you enjoyed learning about the cast of Star Trek: The Next Generation and where they are now, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe for more vintage Hollywood retrospectives and share your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing your memories and suggestions, so let us know which TV show or movie cast you'd like us to feature next.